questions 26 through 29. Listen to part of a radio broadcast.
Good evening, listeners. This is Karen Pearson, and I'm the host of Current Events here on WQMR. I've got a very special guest for you tonight. I'm going to be talking with Professor Pratt Harris. He teaches archaeology at Westmoreland University. Good evening, Professor.
Good evening, Karen. Thank you for having me on your show.
The pleasure is all mine. Now, Professor, we asked you to be with us today because of the news coming from nearby Waterton. Why don't you tell us about it?
Sure. It appears that 3 young boys were out walking in the forest near Waterton a couple of days ago. One of them stumbled upon a previously unknown cave. The boys, of course, couldn't restrain their natural curiosity, so they investigated the cave. Inside, they found some works of art painted on the walls.
Cave art. I believe that's the first example of cave art ever found in our area, isn't it?
That's correct, Karen. A large number of Native American tribes are known to have lived here in the past. But none of the tribes that lived in this region in the past few centuries made any cave art. As a result, that would be my colleagues and I at the university, we believe this cave art could be thousands of years old.
Is there any way to determine the age of the paintings?
Yes, there is. We can use carbon dating methods on both the paintings and the artifacts that were found in the cave. You see, not only are there works of art on the walls, but there are also many artifacts, such as pottery in the cave. It's quite an impressive archaeological discovery. In fact, I'm pretty sure that by the time we discover everything there is to be known about the cave, it will be one of the most important archaeological sites in the entire country.
That's a bold statement, Professor, and I'd like you to defend it. But first, we're going to take a short commercial break, and then we'll continue talking with Professor Harris.
Now answer the questions. Number 26. Why does the professor mention Waterton? Number 27. According to the professor, when was the newly discovered art most likely made? Number 28. What was found along with the art? Number 29. What is probably true about the recent discovery? Questions 30 through 34. Listen to a teacher talking in a physics class. Everyone, please turn to page 101. We're going to learn about Sir Isaac Newton next. You know who he is, right? Jane?
He was one of the greatest scientists of all time. He discovered gravity and he did work in several other fields, including mathematics and optics.
Well done, Jane. Newton was a brilliant scientist, and he's one of my favorite people in history. I simply love talking about him and his discoveries. One of his greatest contributions to humanity was his coming up with the 3 laws of motion. Let me give them to you in brief right now. The first law of motion states that every object is either in a state of rest or in uniform motion in a straight line unless an external force acts upon it. This means that a thing either remains still or moves in one direction until something causes it to stop doing that. Look at this ball on my desk. It's not moving. But I push it and it starts to roll. It keeps rolling until it hits the book. Right? About now. And then it stops. That's Newton's first law of motion in action. Now, the second law of motion, it's slightly more complicated. Newton said that the relationship between an object's mass and acceleration and its applied force can be summed up by the formula F equals ma. Let me write that on the board. F stands for force, m stands for mass, and a stands for acceleration. To put it simply, the velocity, or speed of a moving object is accelerated when a new force is applied to it. Here's a simple example. Press the gas pedal on a car, and it accelerates. As for the third law of motion, Newton said that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. What does that mean? If one object hits another object, equal forces will act on them, but the forces will move in opposite directions. Think about a rocket. When its engine ignites, the burning gases in the engine move downward. As a result, the rocket moves upward. Now, let me show you a short video that will give you some more examples of all three laws of motion. Now answer the questions. Number 30. What is the teacher mainly discussing? Number 31. What can be inferred about the teacher? Number 32. How does the teacher demonstrate the first law of motion? Number 33. What is the third law of motion? Number 34. What will the teacher probably do next? Questions 35 through 38. Listen to part of a discussion in a health class.
I'd like to chat about stress. This is something that can affect people's well-being in many ways. But what exactly is stress? It's a difficult question to answer since people tend to define stress in different ways. Let's take a look at some of the physical effects of stress first. What happens when a person experiences stress?
Some people get headaches. My heart tends to beat faster, and my blood pressure rises too.
Yeah, and some people have specific responses to stress. For example, my sister bites her fingernails when she is stressed out. Other people sweat a lot.
That's right, Lucy. Some people have trouble breathing, and others' legs and hands start shaking. Additionally, in some cases, a person's personality may undergo a change. For instance, some people act rudely when they're stressed out. Others shout, make demands, and act quite poorly. Now, tell me, what causes stress?
School and homework.
Be serious, Brad.
I wasn't trying to be funny, Miss Carter. School and homework probably cause stress for everyone in the class. At least they do for me. People's jobs and their everyday lives can give them stress too.
That's a better answer, thanks. People often experience stress when they have no control over something. Think about it. Sitting in traffic jams can be stressful. You can't control the traffic, so there's nothing you can do to make the cars move faster. Thus, your feeling of helplessness can transform into stress. What other problems cause stress?
Not having enough time to do something. And money. I think a lack of money can cause stress too.
Those are good points. Okay, what can people do about stress? How can they get rid of it? First, for those of you like Brad who suffer stress because of school, you can get your work done faster. That means you shouldn't wait to do your homework until 10 minutes before class begins. You should do it earlier. In other words, solve the problems that are causing you stress. Any other ideas?
Exercise works for me. When I get stressed out, I play basketball or go jogging. That always takes my mind off my problems and relieves my stress.
Now answer the questions. Number 35. Why does the girl mention her sister? Number 36. What does the teacher imply when she says this?
Be serious, Brad.
Number 37. According to the teacher, how can traffic jams cause stress? Number 38. Why does the teacher suggest that the students should do their homework early? Questions 39 through 42. Listen to a teacher talking in a history class. Centuries ago, miners made use of primitive railway systems. They utilized wooden tracks that carts ran on. The miners loaded ore onto the carts. Then they wheeled the carts out of the mines. Most of these tracks were underground, but some ran above ground as well. The miners could therefore transport heavy loads of ore somewhat easily. Of course, these carts were either pushed by people or pulled by horses or other animals. There weren't any engines at that time. This method of moving heavy objects was most commonly employed in Germany, Britain, and some other places in Europe. Using people to push wagons or horses to pull them isn't very efficient, though. People and horses get tired and can't travel long distances without resting. So people sought new sources of power to move their carts. The steam engine, which was perfected in Britain in the late 1700s, was the ideal solution. Some people immediately recognized the potential that the steam engine had for transportation. As a result, these individuals tried using steam engines to pull wagons on rails. This was first accomplished in England in 1804. By the 1820s, a lot of people were experimenting with various types of engines and vehicles. In 1825, British engineer George Stephenson invented a train engine that he called locomotion. It ran on the first public railway system in the world. Over the next few years, railways were built all over Britain. Most only ran short distances, but they were so successful that long-distance railways began getting built. The first major railway line opened in 1830. It was the Liverpool to Manchester line in Britain. The owners made money by charging fees for transporting both cargo and passengers. By 1860, Britain had more than 16,000 kilometers of railways. It wasn't the only place that had trains. All over Europe and the United States, people were building railroads. Trains came to dominate land transportation in the 19th century. Now let me give you a few details about railroads in the United States. I think you'll find these facts quite interesting. Now answer the questions. Number 39. What is the teacher explaining? Number 40. How were carts that ran on wooden tracks moved? Number 41. What did George Stephenson do? Number 42. What is probably true about railroads? Stop. This is the end of the listening section.